Colonial Pipeline has just paid a ransom of over $5 million after its systems were shut down by hackers. As a result, gas prices are skyrocketing. The FBI reported that the group responsible for the attack goes by the name of Dark Side and are based out of Eastern Europe. Nearly anything or anybody connected to the internet is vulnerable to hackers. This is why I highly recommend VirtualShield VPN. With VirtualShield, you can hide your identity and help keep your information secure while browsing the internet. Take advantage of their 30-day free trial with an extended 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to https://bit.ly/safewithstill in the description box below to get 30% off for the next 24 hours. Good Father's Day evening. I'm still reporting on the coup. Poor Kamala Harris. She can't even go out in public now without people shouting at her about going to the border. Harris also has been repeatedly asked questions by pesky reporters. Harris had to verbally smack down an out-of-control Univision reporter who had the audacity to ask her when she was going to the border. Kamala laughs at all these questions, even when smacking down a reporter. The reason Kamala has not been to the border, where she is in charge of U.S. policy, is that she doesn't want to go. It may sound simple and obvious, but it isn't simple. Harris knows Joe Biden and knows how severely he is mentally impaired. The public sees Biden when he's pepped up on something, but Harris gets to see him when he isn't. She knows that he tries to cover up interviews with catchphrases that give him more time to think, like, "Come on, man." She knows he gets to work at 10 a.m., goes to lunch for 2 or 3 hours at noon, comes back for a couple of hours before dinner, then quits for the day. Washington, for all its faults, is a town where people work 16-hour days, not 4 or maybe 5-hour days. Harris knows that old Uncle Joe just isn't up to the job. When asked why she hadn't been to the border, Kamala said, "I haven't been to Europe either." The correct response from the so-called member of the press interviewing her on this occasion would have been, "Yes, but you weren't put in charge of Europe, and you were put in charge of the Democrat Party's most critical weak point, the job of how to cover up the importation through our southern border of millions of likely Democrat voters by Election Day 2022. Now, I've not seen the latest polling on this subject, but I'm pretty sure it's looking bad for holding the House for the desperados. I mean, after all, now you have the spectacle of Stacey Abrams coming out in favor of voter ID. Something's going on. Kamala knows that Joe Biden needed help getting through something like the recent meetings in Europe, and she thought that when she signed up to be vice president, that would be her job by now. You know, the real power behind the throne, the behind-the-scenes person making the decisions, telling Uncle Joe what to say, reminding him not to stare at young girls and make rude remarks, and teaching him how to answer any questions by listening to her on his invisible Clinton earpiece. But as Kamala said, she hasn't been to Europe. Instead, she was sent to Guatemala. She isn't the co-president. She is a much more typical vice president with very little to do. The person doing the job that Kamala thought was hers is Joe Biden. She's the one accompanying Joe, tracking him down and making sure he gets where he's supposed to be, give or take 3 or 4 hours. She is the one grabbing his hand before he can run it through a young girl's hair. And she is the one who can enforce her preferences on the president because she, and only she, knows where all Joe Biden's bodies are buried. Unfortunately for Jill, she could not go out on the podium with him and answer questions, and Kamala probably could, or replace him altogether, explaining that he couldn't remember whether you put your shoes on first or your socks, so he was delayed. It is the perfect assignment to get someone trying to make a move up the ladder out of the way. If Kamala goes down to the border to bring some kind of order, then the left goes nuts. If she goes to the border and doesn't change anything, then the crisis gets worse and worse. That image will hang around her neck forever. The only thing that works are tough policies like President Donald Trump enforced. You treat people illegally crossing the southern border the same as you treat people illegally entering the country anywhere else. You send them home. It was a fair policy and it was working, but there is no way that Kamala can recommend returning to Trump's policies. There is also no way that she can go to the border and see thousands of kids being held in overcrowded cages and not pledge to do something. With an ocean between them, Joe Biden might be persuaded to order Kamala to schedule a trip to the border. Or if he was really clever, he could just announce the date his vice president was going, and Kamala could find out about it by watching CNN. It would be the perfect political suicide mission. Harris couldn't say she didn't know and admit that she was totally out of the loop. She couldn't yawn and giggle and say she doesn't care because it's all theater. And she couldn't say the President of the United States doesn't know what he's talking about and I'm not going to the border. Uncle Joe isn't sharp enough to come up with a plan like that, but Jill is. So don't be surprised if a date for Kamala Harris to visit the border isn't announced in the near future. I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day. Gold and silver have stood the test of time. They give stability in times like these. Start an IRA this month with Noble Gold and you'll get a 1/10 ounce gold bullion American Eagle coin. You'll be growing thousands of extra tax-deferred dollars in your fund over the years, safely and steadily. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com.